Redrafting the first 2 rounds. Will Pete Crow Armstrong make the cut? Yes, he will. Don't worry about that. Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Tuesday, July 15th. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, we will be redrafting the first 2 rounds, rest of season, top 24 players heading into the second half. We'll have some quick takeaways from the first half of the season, anything that stood out to us, and a quick thought on the home run derby. It is in the books. Big Dumper gets it done.
The year of Big Dumper.
Caminero. You almost got that one, Chris. You gave out a long shot bet, and Caminero was awesome, man. He almost took it down.
It was close. You know what? The kid robbing the home run threw him off. It really, because I think that was like his 12th home run or his 7th home run, and his pace really slowed down from that point on. So
that catch was great, by the way.
I mean, it was a good catch. I did feel a little bad. They kept like going back to the kid. It's like you don't have to show him. He knows he messed up. All right. Even a teenager is aware that he shouldn't have done that. We didn't.
Did that actually take away a home run?
No, they gave it to him, but
they counted.
It
really,
threw
I didn't
him.
Watch it.
Yeah, it threw him off it threw Junior Caminero off his game. He was like trying to figure out if it counted. I personally, I think they should call it a draw. You know?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Come on, Big Dumper.
No,
Dude.
the year of Big Dumper. Of course he won.
Oh yeah, he will be mentioned today as well. Top 2 rounds, rest of season. O'Neal Cruz, 500+ foot home run in the home run derby. I actually kind of like this format. I know they've gone back and forth. I think they've kind of settled on something nice here. The only thing I didn't like, the tiebreaker in the first round between Raleigh and Rooker being a decimal of a.
This is so stupid.
How far the ball went.
That is like
just have a swing off. Like why not?
There is no way that Statcast can be that accurate. Yeah. To a 1/10 of an inch, 470 feet. Like they're estimating distance traveled based on launch angle, speed, like wind. Like there's no way that Statcast can be that accurate. That bothered me greatly.
And Brett
wait till I tell you about first downs in football.
I kind of like how stupid that is, though. I think that's how they should do the tiebreaker. They should have one guy with a tape measure walk all the way to where the ball landed.
And he has to be 75 years old or older.
Yeah, I will say, and weirdly jacked, like all NFL referees are these days. I will say, O'Neal Cruz hitting a 513 foot home run in the home run derby. It just highlights how rare that is. And growing up pre-Statcast, I used to say, oh my God, you see that 500-foot home run Gary Sheffield hit? No, you didn't. Because guys don't hit 500-foot home runs. That basically never happens. We've had the Statcast era for 12 years now, or 11 seasons, something. There have been 3 500-foot home runs in the last 11 seasons. Giancarlo Stanton, Nomar Mazara, and C.J. Cron. Love that list. That's a hilarious list of players. It does take a little bit of the magic away from the home run. The fact that we know how far they go.
You know what? If anyone was going to hit a 500-foot homer back in the day, Gary Sheffield would have been the one to do it. So shout out to Big Dumper. He wins the home run derby. All-Star game going on later tonight, whenever you're listening to this podcast. So should be a lot of fun as well. Before we get into this redraft, one major takeaway from the first half, or I don't know, just kind of talking through some thoughts, whatever has happened thus far. Scott, what stands out, man? How was the first half?
Well, I think the biggest story fantasy-wise of the first half was the guy you mentioned at the very top of the show, Pete Crow Armstrong. And believe it or not, I have been ruminating over this quite a bit. Like, what did I miss on Pete Crow Armstrong? I mean, in retrospect, now that there's a full amount of data here, I mean, I could look at why he's succeeding, the very high pull air rate. And I think that's a big story of this season too, is just the introduction of that stat to a player's baseball savant page and how it fills in so many of the gaps that existed in expected stats previously. And how do you explain why a player underperformed his expected stats or overperformed? Well, a lot of times it just comes down to pull air rate, but that's kind of a tangent. Pete Crow Armstrong, I had him as a bust. All three of us had him as a bust. He's been such a topic of conversation here throughout the first half within kind of the fantasy community that I know most everybody had him as a bust, which meant he was awfully affordable in drafts. And I have been struggling the last 5 years or so with how to get an edge, because I feel like the first 10, 12 years, I did have a nice edge in playing fantasy baseball, and it was something I was very confident in my ability, and I felt like I was a dangerous person to go up against in leagues. Like, people were a little scared whenever I was in their league, and that felt good. I want that surge of power back, but there's become such a consensus around players with the introduction of StatCast, and we kind of just analyze players all the same way and come to basically the same conclusions as we did with Pete Crow Armstrong. And so I'm wondering if a market inefficiency exists here that can give me that edge. If there is a guy who had pretty good minor league numbers, had some prospect pedigree, but people are looking at the data points we always look at and decide, probably not that big of a deal. And so he slides in drafts. Maybe that's somebody you should just target for the sake of it, because it's not. If it goes bad, it's the cost isn't high enough that it's really going to sidetrack your season. I'm not saying you do this with a guy, who's a 5th round pick, but Crow Armstrong was sliding into the 12th, 13th round. You don't lose that much by missing on that pick.
Well, so yes, I agree there. Like, if they fall far enough, but the problem is, okay, it works with Pete Crow Armstrong, but what was there to make us believe that something like this was going to happen?
Again, minor league track record.
No, his minor league track record was pretty good.
Yeah,
but he had between AA and AAA, he had 25 homers in 133 games at 21/22. Not young or not old, but not so young that you're like, oh, you can just build on those numbers. He's been better than he was in the minors. So that's the thing. I'm sure it's like
AAA. How young do you expect?
He had an 820 OPS in 2 seasons as a 21 and 22-year-old at AAA.
Because he doesn't walk at all. So the OBP is
right, but he's not walking now.
Right, but he's great.
He's hitting for much more. Right, no, but I'm saying he's hitting he's had 25 homers in 95 games right now. He had 11 in 60 games at AAA. So that I agree that completely fading Pete Crow Armstrong at the price that he was at, clearly a mistake. There was something there. But I don't know if there's a lesson to be learned there. Well, because he's just gotten so much better.
That's what I'm trying to decide, because I'm not sure I'm totally... Look, Cal Raleigh, I feel fine not predicting him to be the first 50 homer catcher. He had power, but it was 30, 35 homer power. He was a known quantity at that point, and there was no reason to think he was going to take this big leap. But Pete Crow Armstrong wasn't a known quantity. We just had minor league data. He was a very young guy, not literally a rookie, but basically a rookie. And so I think, okay, let's look at some comps here, historical comps. Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts came up just before the inception of StatCast. And years before we really knew what to do with StatCast, certainly before I took StatCast seriously. If I saw the same data points for Mookie Betts when he first came up, and I'll say, when Mookie Betts came up, I was a big believer. I was pushing him hard. I certainly wasn't the only one, but I was very much on board with Mookie Betts when he first got called up, and it turned out great. If I had seen those data points for Mookie Betts when he came up, I might have faded him. And I know, like I worked with Al Melchior at the time. He was always into the cutting edge stuff data wise. Again, StatCast didn't exist there, but he was looking at StatCast type things. Like I know home run distance for Mookie Betts was a sticking point for him. And he was, he's a little more reluctant to embrace Mookie Betts than I was because of that. And I was like, "Oh, come on!" He's Mookie Betts, like he's crushed it everywhere he's gone, and he's crushing it in the majors so far. And like, I think you're overthinking this one. And obviously, it played out the way it played out. Mookie Betts has been a generational type of player. But if I knew then what I know that now, would I have been taking the stance more like Al did?
Maybe.
And it would have been a mistake.
Sure. But I would just, my problem with like trying to draw a lesson from that is, well, okay, Pete Crow Armstrong worked. Dylan Cruz didn't. Yeah. Jason Dominguez hasn't really worked.
Dylan Cruz is still a mystery box.
But it hasn't worked in the same way. If you applied this thought process, Evan Carter, I'm just looking at 2024 top prospects who like Kobe Mayo, Heston Kierstad, Mason Wynn, like it worked with Pete Crow Armstrong. I don't know if
Kobe Mayo has the data points. So these are not all comparable players. I mean, Dylan Cruz has the data points.
Right, but they also have the production and the pedigree. So what's the lesson to be learned from?
So much.
No, but Pete Crow Armstrong didn't. Hold on. But Pete Crow Armstrong didn't have the production at the major league level.
Forget the specific players and the specific data points. The conclusion to draw, and I haven't drawn this conclusion. This is a half-baked idea. But what I'm saying is, if there is a player out there who a certain segment of the baseball analysis community acknowledges is a talent, Pete Crow Armstrong was a legit prospect. But us in our fantasy silo, heavy into the exit velocities and all the StatCast stuff, say, yeah, but is he really? And there's consensus around that because there's always consensus around the StatCast stuff. And so the cost ends up being, the opportunity cost ends up being low for this player, as it was for Pete Crow Armstrong. Is that a market inefficiency that you could take advantage of? Because I need to figure out how to get an edge somehow. And I've struggled to find that place.
Yeah, I think it could be. It just,
that's the one. Work.
That's the one where
the opportunity cost is low.
I think the way to maybe put it would be, as we've talked a lot about, giving the young guys who struggle, and not just in terms of production, but in terms of their StatCast quality. Pete Crow Armstrong's StatCast quality has just gotten better in his second season. It's not like he's the same guy he was last season and is just putting up better numbers. He's playing better, but
that can always happen with a player that young.
Right, that's what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the
biggest takeaway for me,
give grace to the young guys when they struggle.
Is that a young player can improve. Now, I think PCA is kind of like 99th percentile outlier. And on top of that, too, I think he's such an extreme example because he's a freak athlete, too, right? Like, I think that there are players that can kind of outperform StatCast data or our expectations of them, or PCA was regarded as a defense-first player. Same thing with Francisco Lindor before he got called up, and then Lindor became this awesome offensive player, fantasy player as well. I think that there are certain prospects that are just like such ridiculously good athletes that they can improve so drastically quickly that we didn't even see it coming.
That is
coming. Other people might have.
That's a heuristic I've tried to apply. This guy's a baseball player, for lack of a better term. Like the guys who are just so good at everything and have such a good sense of how to play baseball. And I think Pete Crow Armstrong is a good example of this. And in a way that a similarly talented player, like maybe Jason Dominguez, is not quite as good of an example of this. And that's not to say he won't get better, but like Jason Dominguez has been a professional for 6 or 7 years. and he's still like weirdly terrible at defense and kind of a mess on the base paths. And like, maybe there's something to be drawn there where like Francisco Lindor, just like Mookie Betts, like these dudes just know how to play baseball at like, there's not a stat conclusion, just going back to like the old timey, like, you know, he walks the right way and his girlfriend's hot kind of thing that they talk about in Moneyball. Like, you know, maybe you mix in a little bit of that. The one thing I will say is there was one guy I really thought this was going to be true about, and it was Brian Hayes, and it never came together for that guy. So, I mean, injuries played their part, but that was a guy that I was like, he's just a good baseball player and he's going to figure out the hitting.
But here's the thing. Here's the distinction between Hayes and Crow Armstrong. Crow Armstrong produced in the minors, and Hayes didn't really. And so I feel like interesting that you brought up Moneyball. I feel like there's sort of this horseshoe theory thing developing among baseball, within baseball analysis, and it kind of refers back to the Moneyball time, where, you know, the critique in Moneyball was all the scouts were saying this guy looks like a ball player.
Yeah.
And
can't hit.
And then down here at the base of the horseshoe, you got, but does he produce? And now over here on the other side of the horseshoe, opposite from the scouts, you have this guy's data makes him look like a player. And then you go back to the base of the horseshoe, the middle, and it's like, but does he produce?
Yeah.
And at the end, production is what it's about. And, you know, have we gotten so, just like old scouts used to be so in love with the aesthetics of a player, the data heads now are all caught up in the data, that they're missing the same thing the old scouts were missing, which is, does he produce? And Crow Armstrong had a history of production. So, yeah, it wasn't hitting 40 home runs in the minors. Hardly anybody does.
Yeah. And I know a lot of people listening right now are probably, this is like a revelation for them to hear us kind of talk about baseball and fantasy in this way. I think for a large majority of players, the data that we reference, it's not always perfect, but we reference it for a reason because, okay, we have more data. It makes more sense to use it than to not at this point in time. But yeah, again, I think there are some players that are just going to be outliers, and perhaps Pete Crow Armstrong is just one of those players.
But just to cap it off, it's also worth pointing out, we're not done. Like,
no.
Pete Crow Armstrong could have a 700 OPS the rest of the season, and then we have to have a really interesting conversation next year about what that means.
I hear you, but 25 in the first.
Well, no, but like I'll point to like Gunnar Henderson had 28 and 14 in the first half last year. Then he tailed off and was more like a 780, 790 OPS guy in the second half. And that's kind of what he's been this season. And I know the injury happened and we all expect him to be much better, but it is just to say that like maybe that's happening with Gunnar Henderson, where he's more like, you know, spoiler alert, I have him in the second round, but maybe he's more like a third or fourth round player. And we're just kind of anchoring to his prospect pedigree and the big first half he had last year, but maybe he's more like a low 800s OPS bat. So that's where it's worth remembering in all these discussions that the season's not over.
Yeah, indeed. Chris, I'll give you an opportunity later on in the week if you have things you want to bring up about the first half. Obviously, we're not going to get to this today because it was a good discussion.
Yeah,
but you know, we've obviously got to move on to this redrafting the first two rounds.
I told you this would happen, Frank.
We'll table that for later in the week. It's a good conversation. I think people want to hear things like that too. So this is the only time that we could do it during the All-Star.
We have a little room to stretch our legs.
Yeah. Before we hit our first break, tomorrow or today when you're listening to this on Tuesday, we will be doing a MLB draft recap, early first-year player draft rankings, some prospect talk with our buddy Chris Welsh. That will be at 5 p.m. Eastern time on YouTube. So if you want to come watch along before the All-Star game starts, feel free to come by. Obviously, it'll be on demand as a podcast as well. Big thanks to those watching us live right now. Make sure to hit the like button and subscribe on YouTube as well. Let's take a break, and we'll be back right after this.
When you need your sports news all the time,
we've got breaking news to bring to you.
CBS Sports HQ gives you a snapshot of all the sports that matter to you. When you need your sports in a snap, find it on CBS Sports HQ, streaming free anywhere you are.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball today. Redrafting the first 2 rounds for the second half of the season. I think we'll mostly talk about this from a roto/categories perspective, but we can throw in some commentary if somebody would move up or down based on being in a points league. Obviously, we can mention those things as well. So we will alternate picks. We'll try to get through the first 2 rounds, as I mentioned. And Scott, you are up with a 101.
Man, you give me the easy one. I think Aaron Judge it's kind of shocking how much he's distanced himself from number 2 on this list.
Yeah.
But he has become an even bigger outlier for batting average than home runs, which is really saying something because he is one of the historic all-time great home run hitters. But now he's turned himself into this 360 hitter to go with it. And I'm sorry, nobody else can match that. If you're gonna homer like at a 50 to 55 homer pace while leading the league in batting average, and I don't know that he's going to be able to sustain quite 360, but it's going to be a really, really good batting average when all's said and done. And so, yeah, Judge, clear number 1.
Current pace for Aaron Judge: 59 homers, 144 runs scored, 138 RBI, and 10 steals. Averaging 4.7 fantasy points per game. That's 0.4 more than Cal Raleigh and Ohtani, who are tied for second right now in points per game. Chris, over to you with the 102.
Yeah, there's no question Aaron Judge is the number 1 pick. I think number 2 is a legitimate open question, and I'm not sure I've got the right answer. I'm going to go with Shohei Ohtani because he's still on a 55 homer pace, I'm pretty sure. He's on like a 155 run pace. Here's where it gets questionable, though. His pace for stolen bases is pretty close to 20. His pace since he started pitching again is 2. He's only attempted 1 steal since he got back on the mound. I don't know if that's a coincidence or something that's likely to stick moving forward. But, when before that, he was on like a 20-25 steal pace. And I think I would still take Aaron Judge over him, but I think you could make it a discussion. If he's more even just a 10 steal guy,
I don't think it matters.
I'm not sure he's better than Ronald Acuna.
We don't know how good of a base stealer Ronald Acuna is anymore.
No, that's
and
fair.
In fact, you could ask that about a lot of the players I considered for these first 2 rounds. Is not quite the base stealer he used to be. Mm-hmm. I don't think it matters. I mean, Shohei Ohtani, if anything, he's maybe underachieving in batting average a little bit, but he's still. It's him. It's Judge. It's Kyle Schwarber. Those are like the premium home run hitters. And I feel like that's more important in this environment than the stolen bases. Like that's a category you can backfill later in the draft easier than home runs. And of course, with all those home runs, particularly in the Dodgers lineup, comes ridiculous amounts of runs and RBI.
Did we notice the 30 homer guy he didn't mention there? Continual disrespect to Eugenio Suarez. He refuses to even say the name.
Let's see if you end up taking him in these 2 rounds. Let's see if it happens.
Mm-hmm. Ohtani, by the way, is still on pace for 53 homers, 151 runs, 20 steals, though, as you mentioned, that steal pace has gone down. And as a pitcher, 9 innings, 1 run, 10 strikeouts so far, has yet to exceed 36 pitches in a start. And the Dodgers are very clearly bringing him along very slowly.
What if it is a daily league, though? It's not enough to get Ohtani ahead of Judge?
I don't think so. Not with how long this build-up could take.
It's probably like 40 more innings the rest of the way, I would guess. Is 40 innings of Ohtani enough?
You're moving him up in increments of 5 pitches per start.
Sure.
It's just taking so long. I don't think that he can be that impactful. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
Yeah.
That's reasonable. I just wanted to ask the question.
Yeah. I think it's a fair question. I would still take Judge in a daily league. Third pick. All right, third pick goes to me. I feel like this is completely wide open, and maybe I'm just kind of anchoring to some preseason takes here, but I'm going to go ahead and take Bobby Witt Jr., who is having a down season by his standards so far. The OPS is down, the ISO is down, power is down. so far this season. The average exit velocity is actually up. And the Royals aren't doing him any favors. The counting stats are not so impressive, but he's still on pace for 23 homers, 42 steals. I think we could see the power tick up, and maybe he's more like a 300 hitting, 30 homer, 40 steal pace guy rest of the season. So
yeah, he surged to the finish line here in the first half. Bobby Witt, final 26 games, 343 batting average, 6 home runs in those 26 games, 4 steals, and I think that's going to springboard him to a huge second half. So I'd pick Witt third. Also, this is the first real question in my mind with these first 2 rounds. But
I've got Acuna third.
Okay.
I just think he's the better hitter, and it's more. I think it'll be more like a 25 to 30 steal pace.
Maybe you should go ahead and make the 4th pick then.
Well, you can't do that because Scott, you're up. Will you take Acuna?
Yeah. I have Acuna 4th. There's probably about he's among those in the discussion for the 3rd pick where Witt went here. There's about 5 players in that discussion, I think, for Roto. But I will consider Acuna my 2nd choice of them and take him 4th overall. And he hasn't shown much inclination to run coming back from his 2nd torn ACL. He has 4 steals. But I think given what he's doing as a hitter, it's reasonable to expect like a 40 homer, 20 steal pace going forward, probably with a good batting average, though he is striking out more than that ridiculous year he had 2 years ago. Still, there's the expectation is a good batting average, 40 homer, 20 steal pace. That's enough. That's enough to earn him a place in the top 5 here, and specifically 4th.
You know, we mentioned Ohtani's stolen base pace. Worth pointing out, Acuna's got 39, or sorry, not stolen base pace, run pace. Acuna's got 39 in 45 games.
Yeah. Did you know? I don't think
although
we
he got
talked
moved
about
to
this.
third.
He's batting 3rd. Brian Snitker said, I believe it was in Acuna's rookie or sophomore season, he said he'd never move him out of the leadoff spot again because he did it once, and
I don't think it
go well.
I don't think it really makes sense. I guess you can get Profar up higher in the lineup, but
well, the problem is the Braves lineup has like 4 for most of the season. It's had 4 automatic outs at the bottom of the lineup, and so you never have anybody on base ahead of Acuna.
True.
Yeah, he's got 22 RBI in 45 games.
That's what they decided. They had to move him down to 3rd once Austin Riley got hurt. So, yeah, that'll change the distribution of runs and RBI there, but it's going to be a lot. It's fair to say.
All right, Chris, you're up with the 105.
I didn't really need to think about this one too hard. I think it's Jose Ramirez. He was the kind of default number 4 pick coming into the season. I think he's just the default number 5 guy now. Like Bobby Witt, he hasn't been quite as good as a hitter as last season, but unlike Bobby Witt, he's more than made up for that with stolen bases. He's on a 50 steal pace, whereas last year his career high was 41. 295 batting average, that's his highest since 2017. Jose Ramirez kind of gets forgotten a little bit. I feel like he's so consistently awesome that I feel like we just never have to talk about him, but he's having another incredible season. The only knock is, once again, like 2023, it's more like a 95 run, 90 RBI pace rather than last year's 232 combined. So that's the one place that Jose Ramirez does fall short. But the overall production is elite across 5 categories.
Which is so interesting because the Guardians lineup didn't really change that much this offseason. I mean, I guess they lost Josh Naylor. I guess that is kind of a big loss, but Santana's been okay. I don't know. It's just
Manzardo has been fine as well. So
he got off to a nice start. He's really kind of tapered off, but
in talent, it shouldn't be that big of a difference, but it's been a huge drop.
Yeah. All right, up to the 6th pick here. I am between 2 players, and it is close. I'm going to go with Elly De La Cruz. I think there's a little bit more dynamic of a skill set here. He's on pace for 30 homers, 121 runs, 106 RBI, 42 steals. That steal pace obviously is down quite a bit from last year when he had 67. But he has made major improvements. The strikeout rate is way down this year. The expected stats have improved mightily. And he's still one of these guys. I mean, he's so young. He's in the prime of his career where it wouldn't surprise me if he just goes ballistic for a month and just steals a bunch of bags and maybe makes that number up. But either way, he's still on pace for a 30-40 season. So
yeah,
I'll take Elly De La Cruz.
I think Elly De La Cruz is basically Bobby Witt, but with a B- batting average instead of an A batting average.
And he has improved that batting average. It's up to 284 this season. So.
It used to be like a C batting average. Now it's a B-.
My only request with Elly De La Cruz is like, when people talk about him, it makes me think that like when people go on a roller coaster, right? And the roller coaster goes up, these people think that that roller coaster is going to take off and fly into the heavens. And then when it goes down, I think these people think that it's going to go down and burrow into the ground. And like, just ride the ride. Just enjoy the ride and stop like every single time he's up or down. This is the new normal. This is who he is. He stinks or he's the best. And it's like, no, he's still developing. The whole picture is a really, really good player. We don't need to like hyper analyze every time he goes on a hot streak or a cold streak, you know?
To that point, if you play in head-to-head leagues where maybe, I don't really know how we quantify weekly consistency, but knowing that about Elly De La Cruz, maybe he's a little bit more frustrating. I think I would drop him down a little bit lower in a points league, but, you know, if we're just talking about RotoCat, I would have him here as the 6th overall player.
Yeah, he is, because I did this for points leagues too, so I can tell you. Elly De La Cruz, my 14th player in points leagues versus 6th.
Kyle Tucker's definitely ahead of him in points.
All right, Scott, you are up with a 107. Yes. Are you taking Kyle Tucker?
I am. First, I want to, because I know I'm going to get the comments, because Elly De La Cruz's batting average is only 10 points behind Bobby Witt's. I'm talking about my expectations for batting average. I'll put it at B rather than B- for Elly De La Cruz. B batting average for him, A for Bobby Witt. Yes, with the 7th pick, I'm taking Kyle Tucker, and I feel like this marks the end of a tier. I originally had Kyle Tucker 3rd, actually, and ultimately pushed him all the way down to 7th. I feel like he is a safer bet across all 5 categories than maybe the 4 players ahead of him here, but he is not as likely to stand out to like carry you in any one of those categories as Acuna and home runs, Elly De La Cruz and stolen bases, Bobby Witt and batting average, etc. So Bobby Witt and batting average and maybe stolen bases. So yeah, ultimately Kyle Tucker ends up 7th for me, but it's not a big gap between 7 and 3. And in fact, in points leagues where Kyle Tucker's near 1-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio is of benefit, he actually does come in 3rd for me.
Yeah, he's sustained that improvement from last year too. That's a big deal. And his underlying numbers are even better than his actual numbers.
Yeah, he kind of slumped at the end of the first half.
Yeah, I think he had some kind of lingering injury thing that he was playing through, so I think maybe that kind of affected him for a few weeks, but still on pace for a career-high 37 steals as Kyle Tucker in a contract year, looking for a huge payday this offseason, and very likely that he will get exactly that. Chris, you are up with the 108.
And I agree that there is a tier drop here among the hitters, so screw it. Let's get a pitcher at number 8 overall. Let's take Tariq Skubal, who...
You took my pick!
...has... I don't think I need to say anything other than this, actually. Since the start of the 2024 season, Tariq Skubal leads the majors in ERA, WHIP by a lot, strikeouts, and wins. Leads the entire major league in those 2 categories over a full year and a half plus. There are some really good pitchers out there. I think we're going to talk about at least 3 more of them. Over the course of the next 14 or so picks.
It's a clear quartet.
Yes.
Starting pitcher rankings.
If Chris Sale hadn't gotten hurt, it would be interesting because I think he was pitching at that level.
Would have been a quintet.
But I think Tariq Skubal is enough ahead of the crowd, especially with the consistency over the past year and a half, that I am like there's no weakness in his game. He pitches deep into the games. He pitches for a great team. He's got a good defense backing him up. And the skill set is stronger than any other pitcher right now. So I do
better.
Think that,
And Skubal's gotten better in every respect that I could see than last year when he was, the number one pitcher in fantasy Cy Young winner.
Yeah.
So that's impressive.
Yeah, Skubal swinging strike rate from his Cy Young season to now, 14.6% to 17.1%.
I mean, that's elite closer territory.
Yeah, and his xERA has dropped from 272 to 243. So yeah, just continuing to get better. He is a beast, and he is the player I would have chosen here, but I can't do that now. So completely wide open, and I guess I'm just going to go with a nice, safe, high floor option. And I'm going to take Juan Soto, who had himself a little bit of a slow start, definitely slumped there in May, but since the start of June, he is hitting .311 with 14 home runs, an OPS over 1,100, and he's still on pace for 39 homers, 120 runs scored, a career high 18 steals, so chipping that in as well. Don't think he's going to hit .311 the rest of the way, but I think he'll hit something more like 280 or 290, which is better than the 262 he's provided thus far. So,
I mean, so since the start of June, slash line for Juan Soto, 311, 455, 659, which sounds ridiculous, but that's basically in line with his expected stats for the season. So he's since the start of June, he's lived up to his expected stats, and hopefully the seemingly annual panic over Juan Soto has ended, and everybody can just be satisfied with the fact that he's awesome again.
all right, Scott.
We need to, again, no more freaking out about Juan Soto or Francisco Lindor. Ever again. Do not ever do it.
So I actually had a player ahead of both Juan Soto and Tarek Skubal. And I don't like that we're putting so much space here between Skubal and Zach Wheeler, because I think they're for fantasy purposes pretty much identical. But I will do it. I will take Corbin Carroll here. And I feel like there are players who we haven't mentioned yet who have outperformed Corbin Carroll to this point, even on a per game basis. And yet this also feels like kind of a conservative place to take Carroll, because we know he's a much more capable base stealer than he's shown so far this year. Like, that total is way below what it should be. And he's underperformed his expected batting average too. So it shows him more as like 270, 275 rather than I think he's sub 250 right now.
Yeah, 245 right now.
Yeah. So I expect him to gain ground in both of those areas, batting average and stolen bases. And meanwhile, the big leap he's made with home runs, that seems pretty durable, because the exit velocities are better, significantly better, average exit velocity. And so I
3
think
miles per hour up on his career high.
I think that's legit. And so if he gains that ground in stolen bases and batting average like I expect him to, suddenly he's in that top 3 conversation as well. But I am happy to take him here at, what is it, 10th?
Yeah, 10th overall.
10th.
The only reason why I didn't take him is he had that hip fracture, and obviously, we're doing this draft for the rest of the season.
Yeah.
Hip fracture in his wrist. Hopefully it's not an issue. Very small sample size, but since returning, he's hitting 167 with a 34% strikeout rate. So I just wonder a little bit about,
that's fair,
that hampering him in the second half.
Look,
Hopefully,
the difference, the gaps between all these players are tiny.
Yeah.
So, I think the 7 games is enough to drop him. And as far as the stolen base total, he's got 79.
He's at 11 right now.
Yeah, he's got 11 steals, 15 attempts. He's got 79 hits, and 46 of them are extra base hits. He also has 31 walks. But that probably explains a good amount of he has 10 triples already, in addition to 21 homers. He's I would guess the homer pace slows a little bit, although, like Scott said, the quality of contact data is by far better than it's ever been. But there will be more stolen bases as a result, I think.
All right, Chris, you're up with the 111.
111 for me is James Wood.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Sorry, I talked over your pick. Say it again.
James Wood, outfielder, Washington Nationals. This came together just way quicker than I thought it would. He still hasn't reached the point where he's fully optimizing for power, but he has so much power that it doesn't matter. He's on a 40 homer, 20 steal pace. Good batting average. He walks a ton. Striker rate's gotten a little bit better, I think. It's like a 1.5, 2 points better than it was last season. I think we're at the point where James Wood is a first rounder, and if he starts elevating the ball in the air to the pull side a little bit more, I think he's going to very quickly be in the conversation for top 5. And it honestly, maybe he deserves to be already. If that Nationals lineup was better, maybe he already would be.
I'm kind of struggling to understand James Wood. I know there's a lot of red on the StatCast page, but you got a 28% strikeout rate. You got a sub 10% pull air rate. Like most players, like no matter how much red in their StatCast pages, if the pull air rate is that low, they're going to kind of frustrate us. They might be good, but they won't live up to their expected stats. And James Wood is completely, and I just kind of willing to go with it because I think he's that much of a freak. I'm kind of just all my statistical biases, my analytical biases, I'm kind of throwing them out the window with James Wood. I have him in my first round as well. I do have one player that we haven't mentioned yet ahead of him. But yeah, I'm perfectly fine with James Wood at 11 here.
I think this is another example of exactly what we were talking about earlier, where James Wood is just such a freak athlete outlier that even though his pull air rate is as low as it is, it's almost a testament to his power that he has 24 home runs while not pulling the ball. The fact that he could just hit his home runs anywhere.
When you can flick it 426 feet the other way, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, it's just, he's a freak outlier athlete, and I think that's to his credit that he has performed this well thus far. Scott, you mentioned this name a little bit while ago, and should be going right next to Tarek Skubal, I believe. And it's kind of crazy that at 35 years old, he has somehow become the best version of himself. But I'm going to take Zach Wheeler here, who has a 2.36 ERA, a .86 whip, career high 11.4 K per nine. He has improved the walk rate. It's a career best 2.37 xERA, and only Zach Wheeler and Tarek Skubal are they're the only two pitchers averaging over 20 fantasy points per game this season. They are separated by 1.5 fantasy points, total fantasy points this year. So they are both just at the top of the list.
He's having his best year ever, too. Like supposedly 2 years away from retirement. But yeah, that's hey, my top 12, we came up with the exact same top 12 between the three of us. The order's a little different, but we got the same 12 names.
And I told Scott beforehand, I didn't look at his article, didn't look at his list because I didn't want to be influenced by what he wrote. So it's interesting that we still kind of landed here on the same 12
Did you
players.
give him a little recap of the first round?
That's exactly where I'm going next. So the top 12 picks: Aaron Judge, Shohei Ohtani, Bobby Witt Jr., Ronald Acuna, Jose Ramirez, Ellie De La Cruz, Kyle Tucker, Tarek Skubal, Juan Soto, Corbin Carroll, James Wood, and Zach Wheeler. Let's take our final break. When we return into the second round, we go right after this.
What's he like? The happy-faced killer?
You mean my dad? Be glad you never have to know.
You think that you're so much better than me. You're just like your old man.
I am not like you at all.
Welcome back in Fantasy Baseball. Today, we are redrafting the first two rounds for the second half of the season. And Scott, you are up with 13 overall.
All right. Well, here's where things start to get fun.
Uh-oh.
I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna pull the Pete Crow Armstrong cord here to begin round two. I've come a long way on him. Obviously, I had him as a bust preseason. I was pretty skeptical of him as much as a quarter of the way through the season. But he just kept it going. I'll still bet against him sustaining the 42 homer pace because the exit velocities are middling. The plate discipline's pretty awful. Like pitchers are going to, there has to be some amount of pitchers catching up to him at some point. But the 45 steal pace he's on, it's hard to doubt that. And so even if his home run pace is nearly halved from here, which I don't think is going to be that extreme, but even if it is, there's a case for Pete Crow Armstrong going about in this range. So I'll do it. I'll take the Pete Crow Armstrong plunge at 13.
Yep, he ended the first half with 25 homers and 27 steals, the third player in MLB history to go 25-25 before the break. also averaging 3.9 fantasy points per game. And Chris, you are up with the 14th pick.
I'm going to go with one that I think is just going to make people mad. But I'm going to have faith in the process. I'm going to trust the underlying skill set. I'm going to trust the underlying stats that all say that Fernando Tatis is still one of the absolute best hitters in baseball. And I'm going to go there. And maybe it'll keep making me look stupid. But you know what? I'm pretty comfortable looking stupid, you know? Like, I've got a lot of experience in that in my life.
Is this a controversial pick? Because I would have made the same pick. That's who I had up next.
Okay, so maybe I'm the oddball.
Furious.
So he like I have Fernando Tatis going in round 2, but I have him way down at 17.
Yeah, you and I basically have PCA and Fernando Tatis flip-flopped.
Okay. And here's why. So, yes, the expected stats on Fernando Tatis are around 95th percentile. X-Slug more like 90th percentile. But you get the idea. They're really high, and he's underperforming them.
He's 18th in X-Woba.
For the 3rd straight year. And so this is where pull air rate comes into play, because didn't have access to it the previous 2 years. Mm-hmm. We do now. All 3 of those years, it's in the blue. Like, he just doesn't optimize the angle off the bat, and that consistently has Fernando Tatis underperforming his expected stats. And it's been especially low this year. It's been the worst of those 3 years. But I just don't think that's part of his. The 1 year he had a good pull air rate was 2021. Which
and he
is
was the best player in fantasy.
Yeah, we keep wanting him to recapture that, but I don't think it's going to. I think we have the explanation now for why Tatis is underperforming his expected stats, and I expect the underperformance of the expected stats.
Acknowledging that as being true, if all he does is gets back to underperforming the way he was in 2023 or 2024, you'd still expect better than what he's done so far, because he's underperforming by more so far this season. And in this instance, he's such an obviously elite talent that's one of those things that can flip on a dime. Like, he could just start pulling the ball in the air more often, or
he could, but a 3-year trend.
Sure, it might not happen, but the floor is still really, really high.
Well, that's what I was going to say. He's still obviously. Yeah. I said I have him all the way down at 17th versus the 14th where you're taking him. He's still on a 27 homer, 35 steal pace.
Yeah, that was my next question. Does it matter? He's also on pace for 110 runs scored, 270, 25, 35 with 110 runs. That's probably an early second-round pick, I would say.
I actually like Tatis quite a bit more in points leagues because his plate discipline is so much better than a Pete Crow Armstrong for one, though I think I do still have Crow Armstrong ahead of him in points leagues, don't I? Maybe I don't. No, I have Tatis ahead of Crow Armstrong in points leagues because of that, because the plate discipline, the strikeout rate especially, is so low compared to some of these power speed types we're getting here in round 2, some of which we haven't mentioned yet.
All right, so I am up with the 15th pick, and I guess I just love pitching now because I'm going to go with Paul Skeens, who has a 2.01 ERA, a .93 WHIP, over a strikeout per inning. He also has just 4 wins in 20 starts this season. He has an average of 3.15 runs of support per game. To put that in perspective, Tarek Skubal has 5.1, Zach Wheeler has 4.9, and Garrett Crochet has 4.4. So not even close. Wins are a category, and we are drafting for this season. I don't know that the Pirates are going to give him much support.
Do you know what Paul Skeens' record is?
It's like 4-9, right?
I think 4-8. I saw.
It's 4-8. Yeah, that makes me sad.
You want to know? All right, here's a fun stat. Not fun stat for Pittsburgh. Paul Skeens is tied for the major league lead in number of starts with at least 6 innings, no more than 2 runs allowed, and no win. Would you like to know who he's tied with?
Mitch Keller?
Mitch Keller. They both have 8 such starts. Funny enough, the Giants actually have Webb, Verlander, and Roop, I think.
Verlander doesn't have a win on the year.
They've combined for like 18 starts like that, which is actually kind of bonkers in its own right. But yeah, The Pirates, ladies and gentlemen.
I want to say that I have a pitcher 15th where you took Skeens, but it's not Skeens. I actually have Garrett Crochet a few spots ahead of Skeens now.
So
Skeens has a couple of problems here. Like, he's part of that quartet I mentioned earlier, but I think he's the clear 4 for me now. 5 of his last 6 starts to end the first half, 5 of the 6, 5 innings or less. So he has workload issues that the others don't. He has the lowest strikeout rate.
Yeah, strikeout rate's relative.
By like 2K per 9. And he can't, the Pirates aren't getting many wins. He has 4 in all. So yeah, I would take Crochet over Skeens at this point, though. Obviously.
Are you?
It's not ridiculous to have
you are up,
around.
Scott, with the 16th pick. So
I guess I'm taking Crochet, and I kind of already made the case for him. He's been every bit as good as Skubal and Wheeler this year. It's just he's within 20 innings of his career high already, and so the reason why he's a few spots behind Skubal and Wheeler for me is, okay, is that going to cause him to have some hiccups here in the second half as he builds up innings or exceeds his previous high in innings? So that's the one hesitation with Crochet, why he's a few spots behind those others.
Crochet, by the way, leads MLB in both innings and strikeouts this season. His xERA last year was 2.85. His xERA this year, 2.83. So pretty consistently just awesome. Chris, you are up with the 17th pick.
And the highest ranked player on my board, who has not been picked yet, I guess it's just because of innings, because, well, I guess there's 2 guys in a row who are the biggest 2 edges that you can get on your competition at this point. And I'll go with Ketel Marte.
Wait a second.
Oh, you meant to take Ketel Marte?
No, I meant to take Cal Raleigh.
Okay.
Can we back? Can I back out the Crochet commissioner? Can I back out the Crochet pick?
Nope, you are locked in.
Well, then he's going to fall.
I think Raleigh has to go ahead of Ketel Marte, but all right, fine. You just want Cal Raleigh for yourself. I see your plan here.
That's exactly right.
Dirty.
Am I going to let Scott
I was debating
talk me into
Cal Raleigh over Skeens when I took Skeens.
All right, I'll let Scott talk me into Cal Raleigh ahead of Ketel Marte.
You sniping me, Chris. Come on.
Based on what he's done so far, this is way too low. This is what, 17th overall?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I didn't know he was on the board still.
You can make an argument that Cal Raleigh is the most valuable player in fantasy given the position that he plays and how good he has been. He's on a 60 homer pace.
64 specifically.
Even if he's just a 40 homer catcher who hits 250 and steals 10 bases as he's on pace for and plays more than any other player at the position, that's probably a top 15 player, isn't it?
Yeah, I would think so. Now, I mean, obviously he's 2 home runs away from 40, so like I'm penciling him in as the first 50 homer catcher. I think that's
I think
at this point.
Something would have to go dramatically wrong.
But there's a reason why there's never been a 50 homer catcher before. Raleigh will be the first.
Things go wrong.
It is the most attrition afflicted position, I guess, aside from pitcher. Just talking about the hitter positions, the most attrition afflicted position is catcher, and obviously that hasn't been an issue for Raleigh yet. But there's still 40% of the season to go. And is very likely to, not that I'm saying he's going to go on the IL necessarily, but something is going to happen that maybe we don't even know about that's going to cause him to slump for 3 weeks and throw off his pace. And he ends up with only 52 homers instead of 64. So that's why, if I thought he was going to get to 64, which by the way would be the most ever for a player without steroids ties, which, like, it's crazy to think that a catcher would do that. But if I thought Cal Raleigh was actually going to do that, he'd be 3rd, right? Like, the only ones that could justify taking over him are Judge and Ohtani.
And I mean, he's been the 2nd most valuable player in fantasy so far this season.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And the one thing I will say is they are being more judicious about his time behind the plate than ever before. He has started 70 games behind the plate. That means he's appeared in 24. Without being the catcher. Last year, it was only 18 games where he didn't appear as a catcher. So they're already being more aggressive with him, as they should be, because
They need that bat.
Yeah, they need that bat in the lineup. It's the only chance they have of making the playoffs is Cal Raleigh being in the lineup. So they are cognizant of that.
Yeah. Cal Raleigh, by the way, that 64 home run pace, it would also shatter the AL home run record. Chris, I know you're a big fan of the AL home record.
We have always the American League home run record is a thing that we've all organically always cared about.
It bothers me because
Aaron Judge's son following Cal Raleigh around the league.
There is a home run record. It's 73 by Barry Bonds. If you don't want to acknowledge that home run record, then at least say why. At least say this is the most for a player without steroids ties. I think you should just acknowledge the record personally, but I agree.
He hit them.
This AL record thing, it feels like such a workaround.
It was so transparently stupid. It was embarrassing to watch people pretend like they cared about the American League home run record. Nobody cares about league-specific records. Nobody has ever cared about league-specific records.
Except Ridiculous. For me. As a lifelong Yankee fan, huge fan of the American League, Chris, I cannot tell you how excited I was that Aaron Judge broke the American League home run record. All right, I am up with the 18th pick here, and few different directions I can go. I think I'm just going to play it safe with another high floor Mets player and take Francisco Lindor, who is on pace for 32 homers, 25 steals, right around 100 in terms of runs and RBI. Batting average down a little bit this year. There are some things here.
Yeah, is it safe?
The barrel rate is down a little bit. The ground ball rate is up, but just in terms of the 25-25 at least expectation year in and year out, I do feel that it is pretty safe here for Francisco Lindor. Maybe you guys disagree.
I would be more aggressive ranking him for 2026 than for the rest of the season, if that makes sense.
It's been almost 6 weeks, though.
He's been really struggling with that toe injury.
But I think it's about healed now. It's about healed now.
I would hope so. It's just he's been really bad.
Yeah. I know he was really bad in June. He's been better in July.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Hopefully he is getting back on track here. But Scott, you are up with the 19th pick.
Yeah, I'm fine with your pick. I only have one player ahead of Francisco Lindor for Roto, which is what we're doing. And that player is the one that's most likely to make people mad. I'll go ahead and take him. It's Julio Rodriguez. I'm not going to quit Julio Rodriguez. I think he reminded us just before the break why we shouldn't with that big final series, 6 for 12, 3 homers, 2 steals. That put him, for as underwhelming as he's on a 23 homer, 28 steal pace, which is nothing to sneeze at. And then you consider, okay, all the StatCast data looks about like it's always done for Julio Rodriguez. If anything, the strikeout rate's lower. And the history for him in the first half, career OPS 737, about what he did this first half. In the second half, career OPS 903. And so I think that last series heading into the break is a foretaste of what's to come in the second half, which is why I'm ranking Julio Rodriguez aggressively.
All right, Chris, you are up with the 20th pick.
I've got Julio just a little bit lower than this, but there's only one player that we haven't drafted yet that I have ranked ahead of him, and that's Ketel Marte.
Oh my gosh!
You did it again.
I did it again.
Can't even follow his own list.
I crossed the name off the list
because I mentioned it,
and then you backed it out. Commissioner's screwing me this draft.
This is about as high as a player can rank while being a true zero in stolen bases. But between just being as a pure hitter, how many guys are better than Ketel Marte at this point? Yeah. Is it more than 6, 7 in the entire league who are better than Ketel Marte? And then adding on that he plays at what is now, I think, even including catcher, maybe the weakest position in fantasy. Ketel Marte, despite missing nearly 30 games, he's tied for the league lead among second basemen in homers. He's 4th in runs, 9th in RBI, and he's hitting .290. It's elite 4-category superstar production at a position where, at best, you're hoping for 2 categories from most guys. Even really good players, you're hoping for 2, maybe 3 categories at second base. Ketel Marte, he doesn't steal any bases. That's the only thing he doesn't do well. And then he gets hurt. That's the other.
Well, For me, it's even less the category production than just, and you kind of said this already, but just I guess to put a finer point on it, it's the clearest advantage you can get at any position, except maybe Cal Raleigh at catcher. So I actually have them pretty much right next to each other in my rankings. I have Ketel Marte ahead of Tatis even. It's not the way this draft played out, but only because the commissioner screwed me.
Scott, you got to pay attention, man. What do you want me to say?
I'm doing a podcast, all right? It's hard to multitask.
Personal responsibility.
I have Ketel Marte as a first rounder in head-to-head points, actually. I have him 11th.
Yeah, 3.8 fantasy points per game for Marte this season. His 961 OPS ranks 5th among all hitters with 250 plate appearances this season. Just need him to stay on the field. Hopefully, no more dings here in the second half for Ketel Marte.
You know how many hitters are ahead of him in xWOBA right now?
I would probably venture to say, I don't know, 2, 3?
3. Aaron Judge, Juan Soto, Shohei Ohtani, and then Ketel Marte and Corey Seager are tied for 4th in the majors in xWOBA. Bye, Corey Seager.
Yeah, I don't even think you can anymore because he's pretty much just turned it all the way back on. I think the OPS is up over 850 now, so Seager has turned it back up. 21st overall pick for me. I'm debating a few different players here. I'm going to go with contract year Schwarbs, who is up to 30 home runs, 66 runs scored, 69 RBI, 9 steals with a 923 OPS. The strikeout rate is down. He's hitting the ball harder than ever. In fact, his expected stats are actually better than what he's done so far this season. He has a 273 XBA. Not sure that he'll get all the way up there, but maybe he can hit around 260-ish rest of season. And he's on pace for 50-plus homers, 110-plus runs and RBI, and 15 steals. Not really depending on the steals, but the home runs and counting stats are just so massive. In a points league, I think Kyle Schwarber is probably in the first round pick.
Yeah, I came close to doing it in my point. I had him 12th just behind Marte. I ended up swapping him with my 13th player, Garrett Crochet, just because I felt a little better about that. But yeah, Schwarber even better in points, and I have no problem second round in Roto because he's a monster in 3 categories and no longer the liability he once seemed in batting average. 2-year trend there, launch angle less steep. Yeah, I mean, Chris made a good point before the show. It's very unlikely he's going to go in the second round of drafts next year because he'll probably be back to DH only. But while we're treating him as an outfielder, I think I have a couple players ahead of him, but I think second round makes sense.
Yeah, he's only made 6 appearances in the outfield, so he'd need a lot.
He signed somewhere this offseason to become a catcher again.
Yeah, right.
Or at least first base. Like if he could go somewhere and play first.
That'd be nice. Yeah.
So we'll see.
Does he have any experience playing first base?
He did play some for the Red Sox.
With the Red Sox? Okay, that was
Right. So you're saying there's a chance. All right, Scott, your last pick here, the 27th pick of the draft.
Oh man,
22nd.
I just feel like I botched this draft. It's gonna look so
22nd. I meant.
It's gonna look so bad when the results are displayed and Julio Rodriguez winning ahead of Ketel Marte, and the person who made that pick doesn't even agree with it. But whatever. All right. Yeah, I guess so. So I think I'm not overlooking anybody further up my list here. I'm gonna take Jackson Chourio, who's been great. I mean, maybe not quite up to everybody's expectations, but even in points leagues where his plate discipline is awful, but even in points leagues, it's surprising how good he's been. I don't have him in my top 24 for points leagues. I left him out, but I do have him for Roto because plate discipline doesn't count, obviously. The other weird thing about Chourio is for as good as he's been, the exit velocity readings, and I've been harping on this since his rookie season, they're pretty. They're not even just middling like Pete Crow Armstrong. They're just bad. Yeah. They're just bad. Average exit velocity like 87. But, at some point the production has to speak for itself. And I think it's speaking pretty loudly here. I think just from a pure 5x5 perspective, Chourio compares pretty favorably to Tatis and Rodriguez. But the worst plate discipline, the worst exit velocity readings, I don't think he has as much of a chance of just blowing out expectations in the second half like maybe those guys could. So that's why Churrio's a little further behind for me.
One thing I would point out with Jackson Chourio that probably explains this is if you look at his average exit velocity, 87.9 miles per hour is deeply mediocre. That is 195th out of 250 qualifiers, according to Baseball Savant. However, if you sort by exit velocity on line drives and fly balls, so taking ground balls out, he jumps up to 101st, right behind Bryce Harper and Michael Busch and Riley Green, guys whose average exit velocity is 2.5 miles per hour higher. So ultimately, I'm not going to say it doesn't matter how hard you hit a ground ball. It doesn't really matter how hard you hit a ground ball, that.
You'd kind of rather hit it softer.
Yeah, if anything, especially if it's fast. That probably, I would guess, explains most of why he performs better than you would expect, given his mediocre overall quality of contact. And at some point, he just keeps doing it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. I'm totally on board with that pick. I was actually debating Schwarber or Chourio, so definitely like that one.
He did not make my top 24. He would have made the top 26 probably, but
on pace for 27-27, 110 runs, 105 RBI.
It's really good, yeah.
Really
And
good.
remember, he was much better in the second half last year. I don't know that it's going to be a Julio Rodriguez thing just because it happened once, but if it is,
it's a good point.
Yeah. All right, Chris, you are up with your last pick, the 23rd pick of the draft.
And this is a guy I actually have ranked all the way up at 16th. So I don't know why you guys hate Trey Turner so much, but he is back to being an elite source of stolen bases. Now, stolen bases are easier to find than they used to be, but it doesn't really look like we're going to have any 70 steal guys this season. I'm not sure is anybody on pace for 60 plus? I don't think so. Ramirez and Cruz are tied for the league lead with 29. So while steals are still very easy to find, Trey Turner's 24 are actually tied for 6th in the majors right now. And that was the one big question remaining about Trey Turner is could he still be an elite source of stolen bases? Last season, he only had 19 in 121 games. He hadn't had more than 30 since 2021. But this year, he's stayed healthy. He has 24 steals. He's on a 40 steal pace again, close to a 20 homer pace, tons of runs because he's at the top of a great lineup. He's probably going to get to 100, 110, probably only 75 RBI, but legitimately, you could say maybe a 3.5. You could round it up to a 4 category guy. But he doesn't hurt you in any of the 5 categories, Trey Turner. Not a lot of players you can say that about.
So, I mean, you say you have him all the way up at 16, which is, I don't know. I have a hard time figuring that one out. But, I don't think it's a stretch to put Trey Turner here. I actually left him out of my top 24 for Pete Alonso, who I know you left out of your top 24. And so for me, it came down to a couple things. One, I think they're about the same for batting average now. Looking at the expected stats for Pete Alonso, his average exit velocity is almost 5 miles per hour higher than ever before. And so I think I think they're about even for there. Alonso's advantage in home runs matters more to me than Trey Turner's in stolen bases. And Alonso's RBI pace is batting behind Soto is just, it's 140 almost. Yeah. And I'd rather have that than the very good run pace Trey Turner's on. So
that's fair.
Yeah, that's why I left Turner out. But
the distinction for me is Turner's not doing anything unexpected for me.
Okay.
I guess the stolen bases you could say are unexpected, but one thing that I pointed out a lot coming into the season was before the hamstring injury last May, he was on a 50 steal pace. Yep. And so for me, Trey Turner has just stayed healthy and I think is living up to what he was supposed to do. Pete Alonso has taken a big step forward in a couple of ways. Like you mentioned, the quality of contact. I have a little less faith in that being sustainable. Maybe that's wrong. Trey Turner could get hurt tomorrow. And actually, I don't know. Did he make the He didn't make the All-Star team, did he?
It's
unlikely he will make the. It's unlikely he will get hurt if he didn't make the All-Star game. I guess it's possible, training shower or something.
Baseball player injuries off the field are some of the most bizarre things.
Yeah, but he could get hurt in the next week. And
don't put that out there in the air. That doesn't need to be.
But that's what it comes down to for me is I think he's just stayed healthy and played to what he should have been doing the last couple of years anyway.
He's very good. There's actually a shortstop I would take ahead of Trey Turner. Frank's going to take him here.
I will not. I am not taking him. I am taking the name you mentioned already, and I just realized I took 3 Mets in this draft. Let's go, Mets. Pete Alonso, 24th pick of the draft here, and man, he just looks so locked in this season. And he did talk before this year about looking at things that he did in the postseason, and when he hit that home run off Devin Williams last year, and just kind of like trying to replicate those things more. And highest average exit velocity of his career by far, 94.1 average exit velocity. His line drive rate is up. I mean, this just looks like legitimately the best version of Pete Alonso that we've ever seen. All around player. Obviously, he's not going to hit like 50 home runs, but 280 batting average with 35 to 40 homers and 130 plus RBI. That is a pretty awesome player here, and in my opinion, worthy of being a top 2-round player. So Pete Alonso for me. I did have 4 other players written down here as that we just didn't get to. Honorable mentions, I suppose. Gunnar Henderson, Vlad Sr.
He was my 21.
Gunnar Henderson was my 22.
I had Jazz Chisholm and Manny Machado. As
Vlad, I didn't really consider.
Me neither.
I get it.
Don't want to discount the fact of him just going ballistic for a couple of months. He does that almost not every year, but we know he's capable of doing that.
And if you look at the projections, Vlad comfortably fits in the first 2 rounds, so I think it's reasonable. I just didn't put him in here. One player that you didn't mention who made mine was Manny Machado, who
I mentioned him as a
because he's really bouncing back. Best xWOB of his career at the break, hitting the ball incredibly hard, improved plate discipline, and already up to like 11 steals, I think, for Manny Machado, despite
and he's on pace for 13.
And still great, but he's only 17th percentile in sprint speed. That's one. I think his max is probably a little higher than his average. I think he might have the biggest gap between when he's trying and when he's not of anyone on the bases.
Mm-hmm.
So there were 4 that I felt like I had to explain away in my article that haven't come up. And they are Mookie Betts, Byron Buxton, Riley Green, and CJ Abrams. I think it's obvious why we didn't include Buxton, even though he's averaging like 4 points per game. Betts I was still tempted to include and actually did in points leagues because the strikeout rate's so low. I kind of just believe the generational talent that he is. He's got to figure it out, but losing exit velocity in a tough year for hitting is not a good thing.
And that's a multi-year trend now.
Yeah.
I kind of think this mystery illness before the season might have really hampered his year.
Yeah. It may have. If you want to know more about why I left Green and why all 3 of us left Riley Green and CJ Abrams out, you can go check out my article.
All right, a quick recap here. Again, the first round was Judge, Ohtani, Bobby Witt, Ronald Acuna, Jose Ramirez, Ellie De La Cruz, Kyle Tucker, Tarek Skubal, Juan Soto, Corbin Carroll, James Wood, and Zach Wheeler. And the second round, Pete Crow Armstrong, Fernando Tatis Jr., Paul Skeens, Garrett Crochet, Cal Raleigh, Francisco Lindor, Julio Rodriguez, Ketel Marte, Kyle Schwarber, Jackson Chourio, Trey Turner, and Pete Alonso. We are going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning into Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple or Spotify. And we will be back again tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. MLB Draft Talk, FYPD, the Welsh will be here. We'll do all that fun stuff. Bye-bye.